It was frost on a gloved fingertip that first told her something was wrong. The way the metal bit she lifted from the tree felt colder than the morning, as if it had been waiting. She cupped it, and the keys fit together like notes in a song she didn't know. Listen closely now. Do you feel that tiny tug at the back of your neck? That is where this story begins.
I'm Samnang. This is Nature's Dread, where beauty meets terror. Find somewhere quiet, put your headphones on if you can, and follow me up the towpath. Tonight's piece is called Crow Ledger.
Our main character is Fiona, a towpath volunteer who walks the same stretch each week, sweeping litter, checking signs, noting fallen branches. The river smells of cold peat in late November. Her boots make a soft, steady rhythm on the compacted gravel. She knows the trees by habit now. The oak with a low wound limb, the willow that takes the light, the tall poplar that leans like an old listener. Corvids use those trees as roosts. Crows, jays, magpies, ingenious, messy, curious. They've been collecting human things for centuries. But what matters here is not that they take, it's how they arrange. On a late, thin morning, Fiona paused beneath a forked crook and found a small, deliberate pile. 3 keys, a brass house key, a flat silver fob, and a tiny painted key she thought belonged to a toy. Beside them, a short loop of red ribbon tied in a neat repeating knot. Each piece sat with an orderliness that felt almost human. She took a photograph from arm's length, careful, and walked on. She had learned to photograph, not touch. The night remembers she had joked when she first learned to leave things be. But this time, that little joke stuck to her ribs. The next week, another tree. Same order. Another same looped ribbon, the same tidy placement. Pattern. Pattern is a kind of language. When Fiona started mapping the finds on her phone, not coordinates, just a rough sketch, the points traced a thin corridor along an old walking route that curved near a patch of scrub where, years earlier, a search had once fanned and then closed. Are you still with me? Because this is where the tiny things become a map.
I sent questions to people who study these birds. An ornithologist I spoke with reminded me that corvids cache for many reasons: food stores, play items, shiny things that attract attention. They learn socially. A single clever bird can pass a trick through an entire roost. But she also said this: animals create bias. They prefer certain textures and colors. They favor easy branches. They hoard near safe lines of travel. That means a pattern might be real, or it might be shaped by 100 ordinary choices, by 100 ordinary birds.
A conservator explained how to document fragile items without destroying them. Photograph from distance, note orientation, do not remove residue or manipulate knots. And a search and rescue coordinator told me plainly, if an animal moves something that later looks like evidence, we need chain of custody. That doesn't mean everything is a clue, but it does mean someone trained should assess it. The tension here is ethical as much as forensic. How to notice without harming, how to listen without leaping. Weeks passed. The corridor thickened with evidence of arrangement. Keys, clasps, a particular brass button repeated at 3 stops. Fiona posted anonymized photos to a local volunteers board, no exact locations, asking if anyone knew why crows might line things up so precisely. A message came back from a woman who had lost a small keepsake years ago. My sister used to sew a tiny brass button on a favorite scarf, she wrote. The photo she described matched the button in Fiona's picture. That message changed everything. Suddenly, these were not just curiosities. They were attachments, small, painful anchors for people who had been waiting for something to connect. Now Fiona faced a choice: tell the family and risk contaminating a possible lead, or keep the pattern private and risk withholding something someone might desperately need. She thought of the birds, playful, indifferent, brilliant,
and of the rules she'd learned from the SAR coordinator: photograph, record, and pass information along to trained teams. She chose to call the local SAR liaison. That call set in motion measured, procedural responses rather than instinctive excavation. This is where restraint becomes responsibility.
The pre-dawn field rewalk was almost ceremonial. Headlamps carved tunnels of light across the towpath. Breath made small clouds. Dry leaves rasped underfoot like careful fingers. From a respectful distance, volunteers watched as a few crows moved through the roost, rearranging, pecking, sometimes stealing a ribbon and flighting with it to the next tree. The conservation team documented without touching. The SAR coordinator marked the items and took custody photos for evidence. For a few minutes, all the human plans folded into observation. The birds doing what birds do, and people watching, trying to translate.
In the moment of close watching, there's a peculiar ethical knot. Animal behavior is not evidence by design. Crows play, they test, they misplace. A conservator cautioned that corvids might mix items from different seasons. A button found today could have originated miles away and from someone else entirely. The SAR coordinator reminded us gently that false hope can be as harmful as indifference. So every find must be framed with care. The ledger these birds keep is partial, biased, and real all at once.
After the fieldwork, the community conversation split into thoughtful debate. Some volunteers pushed for publicizing the pattern. If the public could help, perhaps someone would recognize another item. Others warned that publishing fine-scale images or directions could expose roosts to disturbance or encourage trespass. In the end, teams anonymized reports, coordinated with a local wildlife officer, and placed clear stewardship notes in episode and group announcements. Do not touch, do not feed, photograph from a distance, and contact trained responders. The aftermath was not cinematic closure. The family who recognized the button received careful, respectful communication that a potential lead existed and that trained teams were evaluating it. Experts tempered expectations. This might connect to something. It might not. In the weeks that followed, a few more caches appeared, some matching the corridor's signature, some wildly different. A reminder that wild systems are messy, and our desire for neat stories is human and understandable. What remains is responsibility, to notice without wrecking, to speak without exaggerating, to protect both the living and the fragile traces they move.
Picture for a last image a single forked limb at dusk, a tidy cluster, a worn key, a loop of ribbon, a tiny painted piece of plastic, rests there like a punctuation mark. The wind lifts a feather. A crow perches unseen, tilting its head. We do not know the whole story. We only know that the ledger exists, imperfect and humane in its own way, and that our choices matter around it. This is no coincidence. It is a crossroads.
If this episode stayed with you, subscribe so you never miss an episode. And a few practical things before you go. If you ever find items in bird caches, do not touch or remove them. Photograph from a respectful distance. Note the general area without posting detailed coordinates, and contact local authorities or a search and rescue team or a wildlife officer who can advise. Leave no trace applies to objects as much as it does to footprints. The wild arranges our things in a way that is both a message and a mess. We must be careful how we read it.
Thank you for walking this corridor with me. I'm Sam Nang. Until next time, check the corners.